Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on our educational seminar. Very much looking forward to having you be a part of this. Um, Other than me getting feedback from somewhere. That's why. Hold on. There we go. Sometimes technical issues. Um, so today we're going to talk with several of our franchisees from Sylvan, and we're going to learn their stories and their backgrounds. Obviously, you as a franchise prospect that's out in the world are looking for a pathway to owning your own business, and you have or currently are exploring Sylvan as that opportunity. So I want to make sure that you can hear stories from other folks who have been there, done that, and hopefully learn from them, get inspired, and participate in the discussion. As you guys have questions, feel free to enter those into the chat, and we'll make sure that we address them as we go. So the first person that I want to welcome is Michelle Wilson. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a simplistic question, but if I said, tell me your story, everything you want us to know about you and your Sylvan journey, I would love to hear how that process has gone.
Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. We're on the West Coast, so good morning. Our journey began because of a dry cleaner. We live on an island in the Pacific Northwest, and the only on-site dry cleaner, they retired. And we called one day to ask them a question and got the voicemail that they had retired. And my husband, we are retired military. Where is he? There he is. We live in a military community. He said, what? We didn't know. Had we known, we would have bought the place so that there would still be an on-site dry cleaner. Now we don't have one on the island. So he really gets the credit for the entrepreneurial spirit. And I am the workhorse. So then at the time, I was teaching here at Sylvan. And we are just, we're local. The previous owner lives 4 miles from the Canadian border. And so it was about an hour and a half's drive to come to this center. And though she loved it, she couldn't give it the local love. And so we ended up buying it, and we became the owners in March of 2019. And it's been a great opportunity. For my history, I used to teach college chemistry, and then we kind of fell into homeschooling. And then I was teaching at a local homeschool co-op here in the school district. And then in changing my schedule so it was better as our children were older and on the quarter system, then I started tutoring at the college and teaching here at Sylvan. And so just all of the temp jobs that I ever had for admin or all of the teaching stuff, it all just kind of fell into line, and it's a great opportunity.
Tell me about some of the challenges that you had to overcome going from, obviously you had a passion for children and education, but what were some of the challenges that you had to overcome to becoming a business owner? And did the mindset shift at all as you shifted, or were you so passionate about what you were doing that it just didn't feel much different?
That's a good question. I was extremely scared to become a business owner. I don't have a problem teaching. I don't have a problem loving on children of all ages. Our youngest we've served so far is 4, and our oldest we've served so far 48. And so our mission, I think that was the most important thing, to decide on our mission. And our mission is to love on students and move them forward in their education. And we had it said to us, define your mission and then live by it. And that was really wise counsel. The other wise piece of advice, when I was very nervous about asking people for money, I could talk for days about education. I could talk about kids and parenting and life and all of that sort of stuff. But when it comes down to asking somebody to spend their money, I was very nervous about that. Until I had wise other small business owners pour into me, and to live by the mission, be passionate. We were brave enough to take on this business, and we just needed to live out that passion. The scary challenges were things like, When do you have to file your tax forms? How do you do, labor and, payroll, those behind the scenes things, for which I'm thankful. My husband is more of the financial minded. I'm also all about protocol and reminding myself how I did it a year ago, because I don't necessarily remember all those things. So I'm big about protocols and reminders and things. But the exciting thing was that it grew me to where I feel more confident to be able to run a business. It helped me grow as a human being. I'm really thankful for that.
Do you feel like it was essential to have your partner, your husband, to help you feel comfortable in this? So there's a lot of franchisees that go through partnership, or I mean, like you talk about even the nervousness of asking people for money, and the reality is it's okay to make money and do great things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you needed the assistance of doing this together with your husband? Was that part of your mindset to be comfortable with it? Did you feel like you had to ask more questions to Sylvan in the process to get comfortable with it? Talk about how you go through that process of getting more comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I would say, if there is a franchise that an entrepreneur is thinking about utilizing, Sylvan is phenomenal. I am so thankful, and the more I learn of Sylvan, the more I experience Sylvan, the more I love it. There are people who will answer those questions. There are real human beings who show care. They may or may not know who I am, because there are so many of us franchisees, but they make me feel like they know who I am. And that I'm very thankful. I know if I ask a question, I'm going to get an answer. And if our franchise business consultant doesn't know it, she's going to put me in contact with someone who does, and the answer will come. I am extremely thankful for the support. I am thankful that I have a partner with whom I can exchange ideas, or who can carry part of the load. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to do. There are plenty of resources available. I don't think that it's impossible to do it alone, but I'm a team player. So I like being part of a team and being able to exchange those ideas.
Now that you're in this, what does the future look like for you? Like, how has your game plan for your own business career and life, how has it adjusted now, and where does your dream go from here?
My dream, we were blessed to have a center director already in place. And again, I said, we are in a military community. I was thankful that she was not military. However, God has plans for this center, and her husband got a job off island. And so we are in need of a center director. And, I'm not going to lie, it's a challenge. There are some franchisees who are center director, and that's their goal, that's their desire, and there is some financial wisdom in being the center director. Personally, though I am an interim center director, I do not want to retain this job. And so for what I would like to do, I would like to be able to join my husband where he is when he flies, and those sort of things. So that's a challenge right now. So where I see myself is, Lord willing, we will have a center director, and then I can pull back a little bit, still be a very involved teammate, but be able to have the choice whether I'm going to be gone for a couple of days or not. So that
I
is,
love, yeah.
go ahead.
No, I love that answer. It's raw and authentic, and the reality is you're saying, like, look, I love what I do, um, but you, as a business owner, there's still going to have to be hustle, and hustle is part of the process, and you've bought into it, and you have big dreams for what you want to accomplish with your family and your life, and you're willing to lean on others to help you accomplish that. I think that's
Absolutely.
awesome. All right, Michelle, I'm
Absolutely.
going to bring you back just in a little bit. Let me welcome Tobin into our discussion. Tobin, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Sure, thanks for
Same
having me.
sort of opening. Would love to hear your story, your Sylvan story, everything you want our audience to know about what your pathway has looked like as well.
Well, I've been to Sylvan. We kind of joke that I forget how long I've been with the Sylvan brand now at this point. When I was in high school, my parents started a Sylvan in our hometown, and they ran that for many years. And I went off and I did my own thing, and I went to college and decided that I was going to do homeowners insurance claims, and I wanted to. I think I was excited maybe to help people, but it turned out to be a position where it was a lot of confrontation, and that wasn't really what I was looking for. So I wanted something different and was not sure what. And we were going down for Thanksgiving to visit my brother who lived in Tennessee, and my parents said that they wanted to open another center in a neighboring town. And they didn't know how to run a multi-center operation, and they wanted somebody that they could trust. And although I had been familiar with Sylvan because they had run it, I never really spent much time in the center. I cleaned it for extra money. I did things like that, but I really never spent a lot of time knowing the operation part of it. And I decided that since I wanted to change, I would go and start it for them because I did have a business management education. So we would start the business, and then it would give me time to kind of see what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, where I wanted to apply. And it turns out that I loved it. I was my own boss for the most part. I mean, I was working with my parents, but it was a good relationship. We had a good working relationship, and I was able to have a lot of control over things that I wanted to control in my life, and I was able to help people. And I think for me, that was the biggest thing, is that I was finally doing something that made a visible impact on kids and families and things. And parents would come in and just tell me like how much of a difference it's made for their family, and what opportunities have come up now. And it's just countless. I mean, there's so many that you can't really describe all of them, but it's such a good feeling, to be there. So we had 2 centers in Michigan, and then at some point I had met a beautiful lady at a Sylvan conference, and we ended up getting married, and she worked for a center in Hawaii. So it was a long distance type of relationship, and we decided that I was going to move. So I moved, and we ended up in 2019 buying the center that she worked at. And then most recently, unfortunately, my father had passed away, and we decided to take on the Michigan centers. And we felt that with a lot of the technological issues that came about because of COVID, that we would be able to handle that opportunity as well. So now we have 3 centers, 2 in Michigan and 1 in Hawaii on the island of Oahu.
I mean, there's so much to unpack from that story. What a wonderful story. First thing that I want to unpack is, and I've thought about this even in my own life as a business owner. What will my children think about what I am doing as a business owner? When you were a kid and you're watching your parents become franchisees with Sylvan, and frankly, why I'm curious on this is a lot of people that buy into a franchise do it for legacy as well, and generational legacy. What was your perception of them as franchisees? Did you even understand how they were impacting the community and what they were going through when you were a kid and watching this from, a child's seat?
I didn't really, to be honest with you. I went to Sylvan because math wasn't my strongest suit. So my mom wanted me to go, and I did some study skills and I did some math, particularly when I was in college. College math was a little bit more difficult for me. And so I kind of knew what they did, but I always thought it was for kids who were really, not doing well in school, maybe not as smart and things like that. And so I kind of didn't realize that it was for everybody, and that it had so many opportunities. And I just think that, I wanted to be my own path, right, and do my own thing. And I wasn't thinking like I was going to take over this business, but just how much joy it actually brought me, I think was kind of a no-brainer. And I was the retirement plan for my parents, and I know they weren't all that thrilled when I moved out to Hawaii, but they wanted me to be happy and wanted me to do what was best for me. But it ended up coming full circle where I did, take them over as well too. But I really didn't know what they did to the extent of what they did. And I think it was a game changer for my parents as well, because my dad had a good paying insurance job, and they closed their Saginaw office, and they said, you can move. And he didn't want to. We had been established in that town, and, we were all going to school, and my brothers were in college and things like that. So he was looking for something and was approached with the opportunity. So he actually worked as a center director full time, and my mom joined on as the director of education while still holding a full-time position in one of the local school districts as the gifted and talented teacher and the 5th grade teacher. And so they made that work for several years while taking on like stock opportunities from that current owner. They were being paid partly in stock, and then eventually they took over the entire center and bought that owner out.
I mean, from going through that process, I mean, you've seen Sylvan in so many different areas throughout your life and your career. I mean, it's a phenomenal story. And then, to add into it, if I'm writing a Hollywood script, for Sylvan, you grew up in the business, you found love, you live in Hawaii and Michigan. I mean, that sounds like a great. You've protected your parents' legacy and have now taken on their locations. You're a multi-unit operator. I mean, it's a pretty cool story. Like, when you reflect back on it, do you feel proud of that story, and do you feel excited about even where you're going to go in the future? Like, you've had so many great Sylvan moments.
Well, when you're living that, I think when you look back and you find that God has a plan, right? You just kind of see how a lot of these things just fell together, that at the time being in it, you don't know that something that's a challenge becomes an opportunity later for you. And looking back on this, you can see a lot of those things happen and just kind of how they unfolded, what got me there. And, moving forward, we're excited about the opportunities. I think that we're seeing a lot of things happen in our business that haven't happened before, partnerships with local schools and things that, really weren't opportunities before that. Honestly, one of the schools was really difficult to make a headway into. And we are now at this point, we're talking with them, and it's just exciting for those types of possibilities and where that might, take the business. And I know that, Sylvan Corporate as a partner is a great partner, because we can lean on them, when we get into some of these situations that we haven't been in before. There's a lot of expertise there that we can tap into.
One thing that I want to close on your section with is, I think you said an important line. Your perception was that Sylvan was for those that needed a lot of extra help. And the reality is you have found that Sylvan is actually impactful for every type of children. Like, you're giving scaffolding to children, no matter if they need a little bit or they need a lot. It's still such an impactful thing, especially what we went through with COVID. Was that just a big eye-opening moment to see, like, the reality is your prospective customer base and your prospective impact is all around you?
Yeah, definitely. The types of programs that Sylvan has, like SAT, ACT, study skills, those types of things they're not really for struggling students. I can't take a student who is 2 or 3 years behind in their reading level and make a great impact on an SAT score just by prepping them for that test, alone. But those types of kids can get scholarship money for that. They can get into the school of their dreams, if they work hard at prepping for those types of things. And the study skills, a lot of times those types of things aren't taught. How to be an effective writer, those aren't remedial programs for most kids. They really need, to hone some of those skills that sometimes aren't given to them in detail, in their current schools, or if they're homeschooled, or those types of things as well too.
All right, I'll end with this comment. Are you in Hawaii now?
I am in Hawaii now.
I feel like the background should look much different than it actually does.
I wasn't sure, how much I should put out there for you, but
it's awesome.
It's definitely beautiful.
I love it. All right, Tobin, we'll bring you back in a second. Thanks for sharing your Sylvan story. And last but not least, Christina, I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. And now I sound like a broken record, but same sort of story. Tell me your Sylvan story. Tell me the things that you want our audience to know about you and how you've found success with Sylvan.
Sure. So my journey with Sylvan started in 2003. I was just out of college, actually, and I didn't know what I wanted to do per se long term. So I did get a job tutoring at a local Sylvan. So worked there for several months, really liked it. But then I decided to move up to the Maryland area to pursue a job in DC. So I moved up to that area, ended up working for a nonprofit company that was engaged in after school learning for several years. And then decided, doing the nonprofit thing and working in the inner cities was a little bit difficult, hard on the heartstrings. The economy, we're now fast forwarding to 2008, 2009, economy wasn't doing so well. So a lot of the programs, after school programs, were underfunded and being cut and so forth. So I started looking for other options and found a local Sylvan that was hiring a director of ed position. So I applied, was hired, and that started my full-time career with Sylvan. So I immediately knew within the first couple of months that I really loved the program, really loved being able to be seeing students run in and say, hey, look I got a B or an A on my math test today. A couple months ago, I was getting C's and D's and F's. And, just hearing from parents about how their experience with us was life-changing. It also, to me, drew, it's a difficult job in that you have to do many things and do them well. So I really liked that the job always keeps you on your toes. You're not doing the exact same thing day to day. In fact, at Sylvan, I feel like every day is completely different. So one of the first things that I say to people that want to work at Sylvan is great, but you have to know how to multitask, and you have to be ready for a challenge and be able to juggle all of those things if you're going to be in center. And so I think that a lot of people start working for Sylvan and fall in love with it and love the experience and love our programs, as well as the challenge of coming to a job that's varies every day, not doing the same thing over and over every day, but also that brings joy and to so many families and solutions to so many families that literally impact the results, impact students for a lifetime, just not for, in the immediate, but you see kids 5 years from the time they come to Sylvan, and you see they're now going to college, or they're entering a career, doing something really successful that may not have been a possibility, especially for our students that started with us behind, may not have been a possibility if they didn't engage or come to Sylvan. So for me, coming to work and enjoying what you do every day is really special, because not everyone gets to do that. And just seeing the growth in students made me just, I guess you would say, fall in love with Sylvan. So after many years at a company center in Maryland, a corporate center, my husband and I started thinking, well, do we really love Maryland? Do we really love the DC area? At the same time, I had some family that had moved down here to the west coast of Florida, and we kept coming to visit. And I thought, why isn't there a Sylvan like for 100-mile stretch on the west coast of Florida? So I started talking to my family and my husband about, maybe we should make this our future, and started talking to the franchise, the team that handles sales, and just exploring, well, would it be a possibility for me to open my own? So obviously the answer was yes. So in 2015, we packed up everything and moved down here and opened our first center. Really still love the experience. Another advantage to knowing Sylvan, and another reason why I really loved Sylvan, was because I was at a company center. I got to see kind of the development of Sylvan Sync, the platform that we use now. I got to see the development of STEM. I got to work closely sometimes with people at our headquarters. So, and just seeing the amount of passion that came from above and how engaged and involved the corporate team is, and how supportive they were, and how much they also love our program, sort of spoke volumes to me in that, well, everyone loves this place, so why not risk everything on it? So again, we moved down here, opened our first center in 2015, and then decided to expand in 2017 and open a second center. So right now I have 2 centers. I do handle a lot of day-to-day at both centers right now, just because it is hard to find help right now. So the ultimate goal would be for me to not be spending so much time in center, but right now I am kind of playing center director along with another full-time person who also assists. But I love Sylvan, love what we do, and I think that making this move was best for not only myself, but for my family, and I wouldn't change a thing so far.
All right, so a few things I want to unpack. The first thing I want to unpack is, if you were looking backwards at your career when you were just reflecting, you were somewhat lost. You were trying to figure out where do you fit in your career, and where can you have the impact that's going to make you feel good, and obviously have the passionate side. And you found yourself landing into Sylvan. And I would imagine there's a lot of franchise candidates and prospects who are trying to find themselves too, and they find themselves keep being tugged back to Sylvan because it aligns with all their passion. How, like, when you're on this journey of self-discovery, like, how do you land into Sylvan, and at what point in your life and your career are you like, all right, this makes sense, this is where I'm supposed to be?
So for me, I actually left college with a degree in anthropology. And one of the reasons I had pursued anthropology was because I wanted to help people. But being, the age you are when you're in college, to do something in that field, I would have had to have pursued a master's or even further a doctorate. And at that time in life, I was like, I don't know if I can do school anymore. So I did have qualifications to teach at a Sylvan. So I was like, well, you know what? Let me go try this out and see if I'm a good teacher, and see if I like it and help kids. And I did. So I was lucky in that the first thing I got involved in and engaged in my time of confusion, I really loved it. And it really always stuck with me, even when I left and went to the nonprofit field for several years. Like, Sylvan was always in the back of my mind because of it's a really, just every center I've worked in has a community feel as well. So just being part of the Sylvan community, and seeing kids grow. So I think when you walk into a center, you can feel it. You can just feel the positivity. And that was really important to me. So I started thinking, well, I don't necessarily need to go on a trek to, some foreign distant country that needs my help, I could do it right here at home. And I can do it, here and help kids here in the US and help kids that want to succeed have the tools to succeed. So I had, sort of this epiphany that maybe that anthropology degree did lead me to Sylvan, in the sense that I'm still helping kids, just not in the way that I thought I was going to.
Another thing that you talked about in your story is just the different situations in life that you've actually navigated, and how business can navigate those things too. So you're talking about 2008 when the economy tanks, and you were a part of watching Sylvan Sync come into play, which technology ended up being an important part of how the brand can navigate COVID as well. So you've seen these two scenarios where the business world has been turned upside down. And you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think one of the hardest parts of being a franchisee or looking at a brand is saying, okay, has this brand battled through different sets of economies or different scenarios that have happened in the world? And because of Sylvan's legacy, it has. And then it's continued to be able to evolve the models to evolve in the way that teaching structure happens. If you reflect on just the ability to be able to see all those different scenarios and how the brand was able to fight through and come out on the other side stronger, is that part of what attracted you as a franchise owner, that you can see that the brand is going to continue to innovate in a category that is important to you?
Actually, yeah, I'm glad you asked me that, because a big thing I forgot to mention, or sort of didn't touch on enough, is we not only did I see the development of Sylvan Sync. I mean, when they first started, it was on an IBM ThinkPad, and the center I was at was one of the first centers that even piloted Sylvan Sync at all. So we saw it from that IBM ThinkPad, which was very clunky and heavy, to our modern day iPad app. So that I was like, wow, this is very innovative. No other company is doing this. If you keep up on your research, other competitors haven't changed their curriculum in 20, 30 years. So just the fact that we were going to be able to make changes quickly and stay current with education. And secondarily was, at that time, maybe I might be a little off on dates, but around 2012, 2013, or maybe 13, 14, that's when Sylvan started to talk about STEM and math edge and things that were going to open our doors to kids who maybe didn't need remedial help, but needed some enrichment in their life. And although we've always had enrichment programs, I do feel like for a while, like growing up, kind of like the others were saying, you kind of, from maybe 1985 to 2000, you thought, when you heard Sylvan, you thought of the commercials with, the parents screaming and the kids way behind, and that we're only a place for kids who need help, or quote bad at school, or don't know what they're doing. So I saw that very much change. And then when all these things were coming into play, there was no longer that, oh, Sylvan's just for kids who can't read or can't handle their schoolwork. It was like, Sylvan's for everyone, and they're for kids that, yes, maybe behind, but need to get caught up. They're for, kids that are on level and need a push. And they're for kids that are advanced, but want to get more advanced or experience other things. So other enrichment activities. So really started opening my eyes when we started coming out with all these innovative products and ways to help kids, and ways to drive more, traffic into your centers and meet more people and make more families happy. So that was actually a huge part of why I started thinking, well, I could probably do this on my own from a pretty location like Florida, instead of, sorry, Marylanders, instead of, the hustle and bustle of being outside of the DC metro area, which is sort of, after you're, at a certain age, isn't as fun to sit in traffic and have a nightlife and stuff like that. So.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's tremendous insight. So Christina, thank you for doing that. Tobin and Michelle, I want to invite you guys back in. So just some general questions that I think would be fascinating to our audience. All of you touched on labor to some extent. What's your temperature on dealing with it? How do you deal with it? Is one of the advantages as a franchisee is you actually know how to fill the holes should you have to struggle more on labor. We'll go Michelle, Tobin, Christina on the answer. So Michelle, to you first.
I think it is an advantage if you are experienced with the system, so that should the need arise, you can sit down at the table and work with students. It's good to know your strengths and your weaknesses and play to your strengths. I think that being genuine and open and honest is always the best policy. And whether it's the parents or the students, that is refreshing to them. And we are always blessed with grace. I'm not sure if that answered the question. You know, sometimes God's going to provide. This is his center, and he's always been really awesome in that way. And when it looks like we're not going to have enough staff, it just works out that enough students call out for that day that it works out perfectly. Or yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that's a good opinion. Tobin, how are you dealing with labor right now with your centers?
Well, you know, we always want to find the best qualified candidates. You know, we're always looking for teachers who are good. You know, we don't want just, you know, we don't use high school students and things like that typically for teaching our classes, right? So it is sometimes a challenge to find the teacher that can make that connection with the kids. But you keep your community open. We feel like if we do a good job with our teachers, that they're teachers in the school and they tell their friends, and then, you know, there may come a time when they'll, you know, it's not right for them now, but maybe they'll remember that when, you know, their situation changes, their kids get older or whatever, that they have more time, or maybe want some more money for any, you know, type of reason. We're also hiring for a center director in our Michigan center. And so, you know, it's challenging because it's a role that has so many hats, right? And for me, growing up in it, from in high school, like I said, cleaning the center, to when I joined, my mom made sure I pulled the books and I did everything so that, you know, if something needed to be done, I knew what wasn't being done, and how to fill that hole. So it can be challenging to find the right people, but when you do, you know, you just see the center and the success that comes with the families and everybody's, you know, working together and that cohesion.
Christina, same question to you. How are you addressing labor in your centers?
So just creatively, like when we do enrollment conferences with families, we kind of try to direct them or guide them to times that might be more manageable for us. We do take staff, our team, making sure that they're happy seriously. So I try to make sure that we reward teachers for doing well. We have probably twice a year a get together, like go out to eat, the whole entire team. So spending a little extra money on them, making them feel important, remembering their birthdays. I have really great staff retention. My issue is a good issue. We're just expanding so quickly because of the state of education that I just have to add staff, and it can happen quickly. Like you wake up, you're like, gosh, I enrolled 35 kids this month, you know, like where you just, it ebbs and flows that way. And so your busier times, it can be a little stressful, but I also think creating really strong relationships with your families, so that if there is an emergency, you have to reach out and say, hey, you know, Mrs. Smith, instead of coming at 4 tomorrow, can you come at 5? You know, I'm usually honest, you know, the teacher they're normally with isn't here tomorrow, or we're a little shorthanded. And a lot of times families are agreeable as long as they have the flexibility. You sort of know which families have the flexibility in their schedule and which families are like, I have to carve out time to come to Sylvan, so don't mess with my schedule. So if you create those relationships, you can work around it. And then we're just focusing heavily on recruiting and just finding the right people. I, like Tobin, am not taking advantage of the high school teachers or the college students. I'm personally still trying to recruit either certified teachers or people with extensive a background in education or tutoring that may not have the certificate but have the qualifications. So I just think that that's what's best for the counties that I'm in and what people want to see down here. So I also invested in just some hiring services and things like that, which has helped. So it's getting better. I hope we keep growing so I continue to have this problem.
Love it. Let's go the reverse way on this one. We'll go Christina, Tobin, and then you, Michelle. Think about something when you're becoming a franchisee that starts with a no and turns into a yes. In other words, you're thinking about this moment that you're going to become this franchise owner for the first time in your career. What was something that was like a little bit like I'm uncomfortable with, but because of the process or because of Sylvan helped you turn into a yes? Is there something that comes to mind, Christina?
Well, I mean, the thought of picking everything up and moving to a place where we knew no one but I had 2 or 3 family members down here at that point. But, picking up everything and just moving somewhere and saying, well, if this doesn't work out, I might lose all these things that I just picked up was really scary. I had, of course, had the experience of running a company center and got to see P&Ls and make sure I was following a budget and all of that. But it wasn't my own money. I was careful with it, but it wasn't my own money. So just having to do all those things myself, like create a budget, versus, John or Jacob or someone emailing us a budget and saying, stay within these numbers, was a lot different. So I was a little nervous about that. I am not a salesperson, but I think that if you love our product and you know that it helps, then asking for money becomes easy and managing the money becomes easy because you know roughly what you should spend on and how to keep the business side of things healthy. So for me, I think just the scariest part was the risk coming down here with uncertainty. What if we end up hating Florida and then we have, this center and it's all worked out.
Love it. Tobin, no to yes in the process?
Well, we did our first center. All of the centers are existing centers. We did open Midland from scratch, but it was that was financed basically by another center that was doing well. So for me, the hardest part about becoming a franchisee was thinking about the money, right? How am I going to pay for this? And is it going to be worth it, right? Am I going to get my investment out of this? Or that's scary, right? To take on, unless you have that sitting in the bank, which a lot of people don't, for those different types of things. So I think that was my biggest fear. And with our situation, we were able to work out different circumstances. It wasn't just a, here, pay a lump sum type of thing. We were able to work out a deal with the current franchisees where this is how we were going to, make the transfer happen. And it really worked out favorable, I think, for everybody. So that was positive for us.
And Michelle, one thing or something that was a no that turned into yes in the process?
I think piggybacking on what Tobin said, the fear of financially failing, of investing something and not being successful. That additionally, I'm not finding my words in this moment. I apologize for that. For me, it was the opportunity to continue to work here. The burden of failing and letting our families down, if we didn't do a good job from the business side of it, that this center that has been here since 2005, we would blow it and it would no longer be here. I think that was the big scary thing for me, to fail. And I'm really thankful that Sylvan Corporate was there, and that there are people who can answer those questions, who have already walked there, who anticipate my needs, and helped me to move forward through that.
Love it. Let's close with this. We'll go back around. Michelle, I'll start with you, Tobin, and then Christina. Franchisees out there watching this, or prospective franchisees out there watching this, what advice do you have for them on joining Sylvan?
It's hard that you're starting with me.
I have to start with someone.
The advice well, does anybody else want to go first?
I can go.
No. Go, Tobin. I knew you would.
Let's go, Tobin.
I think
Tobin, Christina, and then back.
I mean, I think it's worth it. I think that the rewards are there. There are challenges, but you can overcome them, and I think that the rewards definitely outweigh the challenges for me. So, I mean, I haven't pursued a lot of other franchises or things like that, so I can't compare a lot of them, but I know that I think if it was a fast food chain or something like that, that I still wouldn't get the personal reward that I get out of this brand and out of this franchise. So that makes it worth it.
Christina?
So as Tobin was talking, I was just thinking about an experience I had yesterday, and I had a mother come into my office, and we were reviewing some progress results, and she said to me, I want to let you know how truly thankful we are. When I came to you in February, we were lost. We didn't know what to do. Her son had been kicked out of a private school, not so much by his own fault, but she's like, I don't know what to do. I can't send him to another school until August or September. We're waiting to go to this other private school. So they joined Sylvan. He was below grade level. He's now at grade level, and we're reaching to get him above grade level to get ready for his new prep school. But she said to me, I can't. She said, I almost want to cry right now. What do you want me to do? Write you a Google review, write a letter, what? And she was just like, you have no idea how much you changed. This experience has changed our lives, and how wonderful everyone's been, and the teachers. And so that, to me, if you're working a desk job, or if you're working another job, that might not give you such a rewarding feel every day. So even if there's a tough day, even if my bank account balance looks low, or a customer, another customer wasn't so happy with me that day, you think back to those moments and think, wow, I went to work today and made a difference. And that, to me, is really important. You see a lot of unhappy people in their whatever profession they've chosen. And I think just the reward you get from working with families and helping them is just something that can't be competed with.
Love that. Love that. Great answer. And Michelle, you ready?
Thank you, Tobin. Thank you, Christina. I would merge the two of those together. There is a laundry list of stories as to why Sylvan is a phenomenal place to be. It is without a doubt a worthy investment. And there is not enough time for you to hear all of the stories of the lives that Sylvan changes, because we do what we do. Our answer is we can help with that, and it is true. From a business standpoint, I think that I would encourage you to think about, really set your boundaries. What are you willing to do for your business? Sylvan's going to work. Sylvan, the program itself is phenomenal, and strong or struggling, Sylvan can help. There's no doubt about that. For you as a business person, you need to think about your boundaries, how hard you're willing to work, how much you want to invest in your center and into your people to make it a great place to be, the program is already set in place. It's the people that makes all the difference. And so think, how willing are you? If you are going to be an investor who sits back, you likely will not have as much of a return on your investment. If you are an investor who is willing to invest yourself, your time, your passion to team up with your center director, your teachers, your staff, whatever, we can't pay them what they're worth. And so if you're willing to invest in the human beings, it is an experience unlike any other.
What a great answer. Love it. Love that answer. I want to thank each of you for giving us your time. It's been a pleasure talking to each of you. I love hearing your stories. I wish you all the best of luck as you continue to define your story and grow your story. Thank you for being franchisees. Thank you for sharing with our audience. And I wish you all the best of luck. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.